I would be running storytelling workshops and I would have people ask me, will AI replace storytelling? Like, ChatGPT, everyone was talking about ChatGPT. And I was like, no, of course that wouldn't replace storytelling. But I was sort of dumbfounded why people were even asking that question, would AI replace storytelling? But so many people kept asking me about it. And then they would go, well, if you use AI to help with your stories, is that cheating? And I'd go, no, that's not cheating either. So I was having these two constant stories or questions being thrown at me. And I thought, I need to start writing about this. So, I think I did a couple of LinkedIn posts on it. And then I thought, I think I need to write a book about this. And, I spoke to my publisher and she said, well, you're the leading expert on storytelling. So if anyone's going to lead that conversation, it should be you. So I thought, yeah, okay. Like, why not?
Welcome to Narratives Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome, Deroy and Julienne Ryan as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
Welcome to Leadership Story Talks. I'm Jerome Deroy, CEO of Narrative.
And I'm Julienne Ryan, and happy to be here as usual.
Great to see you as always, Julienne. Before we move on to introducing our guest today, I want to remind our listeners to subscribe to the podcast Leadership Story Talks wherever you find your podcasts. Also, remember to leave a review as that drives word of mouth. And check out our YouTube channel where you can see us in beautiful Technicolor as human beings. We're not AI bots. It's relevant to the conversation we're about to have here. That's why I say that. And also remember to go to narrative.com, narrative.com/podcast, where you can find all of our previous episodes of more than 160 at this point. So without further ado, today, we are joined by Gabrielle Dolan. Gabrielle is considered one of the world's leading authorities on business storytelling. It's very exciting to have you today with us. Her client list is extensive. It includes Visa, Amazon, EY, Accenture, IBM, Uber, the Obama Foundation, and I could go on for a while. She's a highly sought after keynote speaker, and her latest book is due to be released globally at the end of November, just in a couple of weeks. It's called Story Intelligence, the Craft of Authentic Storytelling Made Smarter with AI. She's been teaching business leaders how to effectively share stories in business for over 20 years, way before it became trendy. So here we are. Welcome to the show, Gabrielle. Great to have you.
Excellent. I'm very excited to be here as well. And 160 episodes. Well done. That's no mean effort at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Unbelievable.
that. Yeah. It's hard to believe. Well, I want to kick us off here because there's a lot to talk about. I've been enjoying the book, and this is a subject that feels very timely and obviously also quite timeless because this is AI is something that's here to stay, and there will be many evolutions over many years, I'm sure. But to kick us off now, I would love to ask you the question that we ask of all of our guests at the beginning of the show. And that is to tell us about an experience that has shaped who you are today, something that still influences you in some way, or maybe it informs your work. The floor is yours.
Yeah, it's funny when you pose this question to me. I think the biggest moments in my life that have shaped who I are of when things haven't gone wrong, haven't gone right? So they've gone wrong. They haven't gone to plan, shall we say? And I guess the one that actually changed the course of my career, and it's probably why I'm here doing storytelling, was about 21 years ago. I used to work at National Australia Bank, which was one of Australia's largest banks, and I'd worked there for, about 17 years, so I was a long-term employee, and I applied for a role. And I was so sure I was going to get it. It was like the global head of learning and development for the entire organization. And I didn't get the job. And the woman who I would have been working with, and I actually, we were sort of close. We knew each other quite well. When she told me she wasn't offering me the job, she sort of said to me, "What do you think you're going to do?" And I went, "I think it's time to go." And I still remember her reaching over the desk and touching my arm and go, "I think it's time for you to go too." And she said, "You have been speaking for a long time about starting your own business." And she goes, "Why don't you go do it?" And the business I was talking about wasn't specifically around storytelling, but it was certainly helping leaders communicate more effectively. And within a few short months, though, I'd narrowed it down to storytelling. I knew storytelling was a skill, and I knew, like any other leadership skill, some people are naturally better at it than others, yes, but it's actually a skill that can be taught and learnt. So that was it was almost 21 years ago to the day that I made that decision. And and you can imagine storytelling back then wasn't very trendy or popular. um, but that changed. I often think back and thought, if I'd have got that role, I probably could still be working in corporates in senior exec roles, and I'm sure I would have been liking it or whatever. But I know I wouldn't have, I know I wouldn't be loving it, and I know I wouldn't have been about to publish my 9th book. That's for sure, on purely on storytelling. So that
Mm.
absolutely changed my, well, not only my career but my life.
Yeah.
It's a
Wow.
lesson on so many levels.
Yeah,
Yes, and kind of, sliding door moments, right? It's sort of,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
What are you going to walk through?
Yeah.
I love that, and yeah, that things happen for a reason as well. And also this is what I'm noticing too, more and more as we ask this question. And now we've done it more than 160 times, I guess, that we've asked that question. But it's interesting because the what really I'm seeing a thread in terms of almost in every one of them. It'd be interesting to go back and see this, maybe with the help of AI. But in almost all of them, there seems to be another person who says something as well, or that you're saying, and just the fact that this person said back to you, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea," And
Mm.
by the way, you've been talking about, your own business. It's always interesting to me, these things that people say that maybe for them it was sort of a throwaway sentence, but we really, boom, you took that and you ran with it,
Yeah, yeah. And
and
I
here you
think it
are.
also shows, Jerome, sometimes that you have a feeling, but it takes
Mm,
someone you respect normally
right.
to see it in you and to say, "You can do this, go do it." I think that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And you're right. They probably have no idea of the significance of their words. If I contact this person, which I actually just wrote her name down and thought I should invite her to the book launch, um, she probably can't even recall that conversation. But it was probably one of the most significant things anyone has ever done for me.
Amazing.
So
Jules, yeah.
those words you just used are actually at the core of what is so powerful when we do engage people in storytelling, because you're able to harvest those key elements, those little things that are hiding in plain sight about somebody, and mirror back to them. And I think that's
Mm,
the magical part of working
Mm.
with the narrative format.
yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to stay on that a little bit in terms of your experience of teaching storytelling, coaching people with it, because you've done it for over 2 decades. I wanted to ask you this: what have you noticed has changed in terms of how leaders and organizations approach storytelling today? I know you mentioned that 20 years ago it wasn't really a thing in the business world, and I can attest to that as well. But what did you notice has changed in all that time in terms of people's approach to storytelling, especially in the
Yeah.
business world?
It's been a significant change,
Mm,
Jerome. It's like, seriously, when I started this, 20 years ago, no organization was talking about, "Oh, we need storytelling," or "We need to tell our story better," or "We need to get our leaders better skilled at storytelling." It wasn't even on the radar. And I would have spent probably the first 5 or 6, 8 years of my career educating the market that it was a skill. And to the point when, you would see there would be some individuals that would see the value of it. It was, really early on, it was always the head of communications. So that was the main person bringing me in. It was head of comms. And they would normally say, I know our leaders need this. They're terrible at it. But can we call it communication training or influencing skills? And it was like, you can call it whatever you like. They're going to learn how to tell stories. And I actually didn't have a problem with that, because I said it is a communication and influencing skill. So, but they knew if they called it storytelling training, they wouldn't get anyone in the room. And so what I've seen is a big change from people being very reluctant, and even when they were in the room. So, you can imagine I've got a group of, the top 40 leaders in a room in an organization, and they're there because they have to be there. I could even sense 20 years, it would be folded arms. It would be like, it would be prove it to me, convince it to me. And that would probably be the vast majority of the people in the room 20 years ago. And over the last 20 years, I've seen that section shrink, and then now I would say I come across an individual like that might be going whatever, and you just go whatever. If you think your current form of communication is working and you don't need storytelling, knock yourself out. I actually don't even bother trying to convince the people that don't think it's a skill. So I've that's changed, almost to the point now where I'm seeing organizations overuse the word story. So not overusing sharing stories, overusing the word story, because I'll say things like, oh, this is our strategy story. And I go, oh, really? Tell me your strategy story. And then they will produce, and I go, oh, so that's a strategy. And they go, oh, it's a strategy on a page. And I go, just call it a strategy on a page, because nothing about that is a story. You're going to need stories to bring that to life, but it's not a story. Or, our brand story. It's like, there's no such thing as a brand story. So yeah, I've seen the overuse of the word story in the last few years.
Yeah, that's interesting how things have traveled. I agree completely with all of that. So I want to get to the book, Story Intelligence. Speaking of changes, right? So AI has
Can I show
obviously
it?
been...
At first,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
the hard advanced copies arrived just a few days ago, so I'm still very excited. I think I've given it to my mum. That's about it so far. So.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations, first of all, on getting that. That's a big achievement. So AI, has been a big change in all of our lives, clearly, and in the business world and otherwise. And in the book, you explore the intersection between AI and storytelling. And so I wonder what made you want to write about those two things intersecting. How did that all happen?
Yeah. And can I just say, I've written several books about storytelling, and I've written several books, right? But they've all been, sort of like, well, if you want to be known as credible in the market, write a book. So you write a book, right? And my previous book, Magnetic Stories, was 4 years ago, and I really thought that, how many books can I write on storytelling? And so I wasn't planning to write a book at all on storytelling and this one came about quite quickly. And again, it was probably only about 12 months ago. I would be running storytelling workshops, and I would have people ask me, will AI replace storytelling? Like, ChatGPT, everyone was talking about ChatGPT. And I was like, no, of course that wouldn't replace storytelling. But I was sort of dumbfounded why people were even asking that question, would AI replace storytelling? But so many people kept asking me about it. And then they would go, well, if you use AI to help with your stories, is that cheating? And I'd go, no, that's not cheating. So I was having these two constant stories or questions being thrown at me. And I thought, I need to start writing about this. So, I think I did a couple of LinkedIn posts on it. And then I thought, I think I need to write a book about this. And, I spoke to my publisher, and she said, well, you're the leading expert on storytelling. So if anyone's going to lead that conversation, it should be you. So I thought, yeah, okay. Like, why not? So That was the catalyst of the book, and I remember speaking to I spoke to my publisher in December 2024 with the concept of the book, and they went, "Yep, we think that's a winner." When you write a book, you never quite know if it's a book or it's a long article. So do you ever read? I read a lot of business books and I go, yeah, that probably should have just been an article.
Yeah.
It's like, you read the first 2 chapters and you go, yeah, I got it. And then the rest is padding. And so I never want it to be like that. Anyway, so I said to my publisher, I go, give me to the end of January. And I take most of December, January off. And by the end of January, I had about 30,000 words, and I go, no, I think this is a book. And anyway, so here we are.
Yeah, and so clearly there was a lot to write about, and I know in preparation for this, you told us about this experiment that you did.
Yeah,
rating stories written by AI and stories written by you and other humans. And could you tell us a little bit about that
please
experiment?
Share that again. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the premise, I guess, the premise of the book. So if I go back to the premise of the book is in a world of AI generated content, our authentic stories are needed now more than ever. But AI can help with that. I also started to experiment with ChatGPT initially saying, can you write me a story on teamwork or risk management? And I was actually quite surprised how good they were. That I was like, you'd come back and you go, oh, actually, that's pretty good. And it could be almost on par with most people's stories, but there was something missing. There was something that just didn't seem quite right. And it was, to me, it was like the authenticity. You could sort of tell it wasn't real. And so part of writing the book, I thought I'm going to put that hypothesis to the test, that AI is okay at generating stories, but there's something missing. So I thought, to put this to the test, I literally came up with, I wrote my 6 stories. So, one story, like I just chose topics like on teamwork, on courage, so I chose 6 different topics to write a story on. And I wrote mine, and then I asked ChatGPT and Claude, and I used Claude to write a story in the third person about these topics. So I had 18 stories in total. And then I went out to people and asked them to rate. And it was rating around, how engaged you were, clarity, did it feel real to you, was the message clear, that type of thing. So it was ratings. And I went out to a whole group of people. Now, this was just to test my hypothesis. I think 22 people did this test. So it's not going to stand up to any academic rigor. And for anyone that says, blah, 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 I don't care. I don't care. I'm not an academic, and I don't care if this does not stand up to academic rigor.
We have time for the 25 that needs to be a statistically relevant cohort.
There you go. I got to, Julienne, I wish you had told me that. I could have just, found another 3 more, and then I go, and then I could go, this stands up to academic rigor. But no, I don't even want it. I don't even want to go there, right? And what I'm going to say the results surprised me a bit, as in, out of the 6 stories, 4 of mine were rated better overall. 1, there was a dead heat between my stories, and in one instance, AI stories was rated better than mine. And it was like, so after I got over my pride and swallowed my pride around that, and when I did look at my story, I thought, it probably isn't one of my better ones. But what was very interesting is, across the board, clarity of the story. So was it clear? Was the message? AI rate, me and AI were sort of on par, so they were clear. And that's what I think sometimes people go, oh, this is a good story. It sort of makes sense. But on authenticity, there was a significant gap. So on the AI generated stories, people going, yeah, that's clear. It makes sense, but it doesn't feel real. And with my stories, there was minimal gap. And sometimes the gap was higher or lower. And that's to me what's missing. So people can read it, and you can look at it, and you can analyze it as a story on a whole, like the story structure and stuff like that. And you go, yes, that's the story, and it's a good story, but it doesn't feel real. And because it's not real for a start. Um, so I even and people didn't know they were AI generated. They just thought they were rating
Oh,
stories. And some of the people I asked to rate were my friends, and I'd speak with them later, and they go, "Oh, I didn't want to feel bad, but some of those stories were really bad. They were using the words like they were cringeworthy, and they were so
Mm.
cliche. And of course, they were the AI ones.
Hmm.
And I even, and I write this in the book, there's a gentleman that I've sort of become over LinkedIn where he comments on my posts all the time, and he's like he's 90 and he's been doing storytelling for decades and decades, and he always comments on my posts. And so I asked him to do it, and he said yes. And then he came back, and just to put it in context, the first two stories were AI generated stories. And he came back and said, "Oh, Gabrielle, I'm so sorry. I cannot do this. I read the first two stories, and in my opinion, they're not even stories. And I just did not have the energy to do the rest." And I just went, and that's in the book, because I go, you know what? That's exactly what this is about.
That's the point.
So yeah, so it was an interesting. Not all. I thought I could cheat with the word count and put all 18 stories in the book, but my publisher said no, that's not going to happen.
Mm. Yeah.
maybe an external link somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. So there's three examples in the book, as
Yeah.
in one of mine, two AI ones, so people can actually compare for themselves how they
It's
feel when they
fascinating.
read it.
And so, I want to go back to that idea of the human authenticity, right? Which is clearly the differentiator here, in terms of this example. And I think probably even what's being talked about at large about AI, right, is like we're, for the people who are afraid of AI or are critics of it, it's like the humanity is being lost. And
Mm.
so, and clearly by using this experiment with story and writing this book, um, I wonder what you have found in terms of what makes, or maybe the better term is what gives a story that human authenticity that is so different from what an AI, chat messaging service can produce.
Yeah. I think ultimately, and I talk about this, when I run my storytelling workshops, I teach people how to tell it, how to find the stories, how to tell the stories, and then I get them to actually share the story in their groups. And afterwards, I debrief that, and they talk about how sometimes they were surprised, they got emotional,
Mm,
or they got emotional with others, and they talk about, when I feel like there's a greater connection now between us, that we share the story, and that's what story does, it builds connection. But when you retell a story, you don't just retell it, you relive it. And so, and this is
mm,
even, even before AI, I would say to people, if you are making up a story that's not yours, you're not reliving it, you're just telling it, and people can sense that. So I think if
mm,
you're using AI to help you, oh, I need a story on teamwork, and you just find it and then use it as your own, you're not reliving it. So
mm.
people sense that. People
Yeah.
absolutely sense that. And the reality is, and again, this was my message even before AI, the only reason people are making up stories is because they don't know how to share their own stories, or they're thinking of their own story. Like they might want a story around teamwork, and I will help them go, well, you were just telling me about the family holiday you were planning. That's a great example of teamwork. And they will go, oh, no, that's like, they don't think it's important enough, or no one would be interested in that. And I go, and I try to flip that on the head. I go, that is exactly what people are interested
Mm,
in. That, you did the family holiday, and you didn't ask your kids what they wanted, and it didn't work out well because you hadn't included them. That's exactly what they want to hear. And it's a message around teamwork.
mm,
So I talk in the book how you can use AI to help find the stories, and even potentially help refine them. But all the time, you can't lose your voice. You've still got to maintain your voice, and the truth around it, like the credibility, like that this really happened. Not, oh, I've sort of exaggerated a little bit. That it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
yeah. You know what I appreciate about you writing this book and putting
Hmm.
these two things together, storytelling and artificial intelligence. is that you write about how those two things actually, it's not so black and white. So it's not so like AI is terrible, we should never try telling stories through AI, or we should only be doing it this way or that way, right? Clearly, you've found a way to sort of bring things in a way that is productive, and
Yep.
positive. Where yes, let's keep the condition is to keep the human aspect of it. It's my story. It happened to me, but AI can actually help me refine that, or even find the story, give me some ideas, etc. But you need that human element. And I wonder, how can, because this is also a podcast about leadership, and how can leaders protect that, like the way that you're framing things for this book or in this book, where these things are not mutually exclusive. We can have AI help us tell stories, but at the same time, it would be dangerous to replace our storytelling ability with AI and just tell it to do everything for us. How
Mm.
can leaders protect that, for lack of a better term, that human authenticity that you talk about?
Yeah, and look, the last 20 years of my work, it's been working with leaders, like how leaders
Mm,
communicate more effectively through storytelling. And I think it's not handing over control to AI, it's using it as one of your creative
mm,
insights. So so for example, if you're Jerome, if you were trying to find a story, or Julienne, you were trying to find a story and go, I can't find a story, and you rang me, the first thing I would say to you, okay, you're trying to find a story around innovation, right? Tell me times in your life where you've tried something different and it hasn't worked. Or I would ask you all these questions. And I can guarantee you, if I ask you 5, 10 questions, it'll spark a story.
mm,
And you go, oh, yeah. And I go, great. So you could use ChatGPT for that. Like literally
mm,
say, I'm trying to find a story around innovation. Can you ask me questions that will help me uncover those stories? So there's it's interesting, even though the story it's called Story Intelligence, and I've always said this is a storytelling book. It's definitely not a how to use AI book. So there is one
mm.
chapter, I talk about AI throughout it. There's one chapter dedicated to how to use AI to help you find and refine your stories. But there's a whole other chapter on how you do that without AI. And so again, I think whether it's a leader or anyone, if you are just sitting there going, AI is bad, I'm not going to use it. I remember about 25 years ago when I worked in corporate, and when computers, just like desktop computers, came out, and there was this senior executive leader, and he said, I just refuse to have a computer on my desk. Like
Yeah.
I refuse to use computers. Now, granted, I think he was only about 6 months from retirement, but it's like that. It's like saying, no, I'm never
True.
using a calculator. That's
Yeah.
cheating. I'm not using a washing machine. I'm going to go down to the river like so. Yes, there are a lot of ethical issues, and I think when it comes to organisations, especially if you're a CEO or the senior exec or in HR, that someone needs to be leading the conversation around the ethical use of
Mm,
AI. Um, but it's one part of story intelligence. In fact, if I can share another, I was trying to find like the definition, like the dictionary definition of story intelligence, and of course there wasn't one. So I had to make up one. So I made up one, and my editor kept to each, well, you haven't added AI to that definition. Like, and it- and
mm,
in and we spoke about this for a long time, and in the end I said, no, you could still have really high story intelligence without using AI. So you could
mm.
still, like, I consider I've got high story intelligence, and AI wasn't even around 2 years ago. So it's just, it can help you. That's all I'm saying. It can help
Yeah.
find and refine your stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Julian.
No, I'm just listening and just admiring because I'm in my own head reliving like when I'm doing a talk and I'm trying to find humor and I'm like I go from I got nothing to like suddenly in the middle of the night something will come to me and sometimes it's so simple, but it's that stress of putting your brain through that thinking process and processing, and then you're like, oh, it was always there. So it's giving ourselves patience. So it's, yes, use AI for an idea or something, but don't miss out on the stress of self-torture. Sounds like when you need an idea and then it'll be genuinely yours and you can own it. So I think
Yeah.
that's part of
Yeah.
the battle of the wills, maybe, and how we
Yeah.
use this tool and develop the little confidence that something will come if you
Yeah.
try it that way.
Well, even coming up, one of the hardest bits of writing a book is actually coming up with the title and subtitle. Like it is like, every working title I've had has never been the end title because there's so many people that have to sign it off when you go through a publisher, and so I used AI to help generate ideas, and it's literally give me 10 ideas, give them this is
Mhm.
what it's about, give me 10 ideas, give me another 10, give me another 10 to get 100 suggestions, and in the end, n none of them said story intelligence, but one of them said narrative intelligence, and I went, "I don't like the word narrative. I think that's really overused." Sorry. And I thought, "But story," and as soon as I replaced narrative with story and then story intelligence, and it reminded me of emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
and I went, "Oh my god, that's it." So, and the same with the subtitle. Had to do exactly the same with the subtitle, and in the end, I've got a mate of mine who's into marketing, and she says creativity is not your creative. And she used to work in marketing. She goes, "We were always told we were creative." She goes, "We weren't creative. We just came up with 50 ideas instead of 2 ideas." So it's the volume of ideas. So again, when I did the subtitle, give me 10, give me 20, give me 50. We could not decide on one. And I went back to my friend who does this. I said, "Can you put your mind to this?" And she came back with about 20. And the one that we landed on was one of those. And I went, "Oh my God." So there's even an acknowledgement in the book to Kieran that, she is more creative than AI.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I guess that's really my main takeaway is that it's a tool at the end of the day, and it's a new technology that we're all learning how to use.
Hmm.
And there's always going to be, um, you know, uh, threats of replacement, and then of course, actual replacement for automated tasks and things like that, which have been happening always. But it's interesting when you were talking about story intelligence as being its own thing, and you've defined that, which I really appreciate because I think one of the reasons we get tired of certain words is that the definition has been completely lost. Like we don't even know what it means anymore.
Yeah.
It's just being overused. But for me as well, story intelligence kind of echoed emotional intelligence as in something that you can get good at and you can develop and cultivate. And maybe that's something I'd love for you to reflect on for us is how do we cultivate story intelligence, in teams, in an organization, or leaders? How can people become more story intelligent?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Just recently, I have my own podcast. I co-host it with Jack Phillips, and we did an episode on emotional intelligence. And she
Mm,
kept asking me the link between story intelligence, and I think people with high story intelligence have high emotional
mm,
intelligence. But when you look at something, and I actually just thought of this when you were saying that, then when you look at emotional intelligence, it's like we all feel emotions, but the people who are emotionally intelligent go, "Okay, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to respond?" And it's almost the same with stories where things will happen. Things happen to you all the time. I could be looking out my window now and see something, and it's like, how could I use that story? Like, what's that about? So part of my I guess, my training, and I hope my legacy is I show almost give people permission to say, "Hey, you can use these little personal stories in a work context, but show them how those when you see it happening and when you experience." It was like, what was that about? And I was like, God, that was. I felt like I didn't have the courage to do that. Okay, well, it's a story then around courage. So then, how you could use it. So to me, it's about being aware of how powerful stories are, spotting them when they happen to you. So, they could happen at work, they could happen in your outside of work, but the outside of work stories linked to the work message, I think are the most powerful stories, the most
mm.
effective. And then, of course, there's the framework in how to do it. So, actually, how to start your stories, what to put in the middle, how to end them, so you're not going on forever. I actually just thought, I'm trying to find it in my book now. we've spoken about the definition. So it could be worth saying that I say story
Absolutely.
intelligence. God, I might need to I haven't memorized this. Is the ability to purposefully and skillfully use authentic storytelling to communicate with clarity and to connect, engage, and inspire. And I think those words purposefully, so know why you're sharing the story and do it well and authentic. So often I say to leaders, be strategic with your stories. You don't need a story for everything, but be strategic. But strategic does not replace authenticity or vice versa. Just, just because you're being strategic can still be very authentic. And if you look at the end part of that definition, why you're even doing it. So why as a leader would I even bother doing this? To communicate with clarity, to connect, engage, and inspire. And if that's not what leadership is, then I'll go he.
Yeah.
There's an old saying.
No, I love it. I love it. And thanks for that. Once again, I think the more we can define things, the better we're able to actually understand them and what they stand for. So thanks for that so much. Gosh, I wish we had so much more time because we could
I
go on and
know.
on, but we do have to land this plane. As a last question,
like a good story, know when to end.
That's exactly. So, and we always have a very similar way of ending these podcasts, which is to hand it back over to you, Gabrielle. And if there's anything that you would like to leave our audience with today, I mean, obviously the book is coming out very, very soon, and we'll make sure to have all those links for them. But is there anything that at this moment you want to leave people with, or final reflection or resource, anything?
Oh, look, I just think if you already share stories, and I can guarantee you already do share stories in a business setting, it's like anything, you can probably get better at it. So this book is going to help you get better at sharing stories, but also help you explore how you could use AI for that. And if you've never thought of that, there would be, how to use it. Like one of your creative partners, don't let it take control, but invite it along. And if you're thinking, gee, I don't think I do use stories, but you like the idea. Well, I do need to communicate more, with greater clarity to connect and engage, whether it's my team, whether it's my clients or customers or stakeholders. Then I would say, give it a read, give it a go. I've had a lot of people say that after they've read my books or done my training, it's changed the way they communicate and lead for the better forever. And I've had so many people tell me that I would be going, for whatever the cost of a book is, it might be worthwhile grabbing it. And like we said, it comes out at the end of November. Perfect time for a little Christmas holiday read.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Great timing. Thank you so much. And again, this is going to be a great resource for our listeners. Thank you so much for coming onto the show to talk to us about it and give us the preview. Thank you, Julienne, for being my wonderful co-host, as always.
This is exciting. And we've been groupies of yours for years, Gabrielle. So wonderful to see you on our show. This has been terrific.
Well,
absolutely.
Love it.
We look forward to communicating about the book to our groups, etc.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once again, thank you all for listening. Without you all, there would be no podcast, and so we really appreciate you. If you've been inspired by this session, you can consider enrolling yourself and or your team in one of our group or one-on-one training programs. You can go to narrative.com, which is NARATIV.com, where you'll find lots of resources, including Gabrielle's book, obviously, and the archive of more than 160 episodes of our podcast on the podcast page. We're always ready to listen to you and happy to listen to you. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, get in contact, and we'll always answer any questions you might have. So as always, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, and check out our YouTube channel. All of this drives the word of mouth so that we never miss an opportunity to get wisdom from people like Gabrielle Dolan. So thanks again, and until next time, thank you, everybody.
See you soon.
See you. Bye.
Cheers.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.